Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Ken Staut, CEO at Growth Fountain, an SEC-registered funding portal where individuals can come together to support entrepreneurs and small businesses across America. In episode 1, we learned that Ken is a Pittsburgher, grew up in Mount Lebanon. He's a Steelers fan, went to Dickinson College, knew very early that he had a passion for finance and wanted to be on Wall Street. And so he took his first job at a hedge fund, told us a little bit about the BS that was going on there, and even admitted that maybe he was a BSer and that he wasn't able to leverage that the way he wanted to. Quickly realized after a couple of years to go back to school, went to Columbia. If you're going to go back, go to someplace great like that for his MBA. Learned a lot about how different types of jobs were done and different types of opportunities, but it still proved to him that his initial instincts were correct and that his passion was right on. And we talk a lot on this show about be passionate, love what you do what you love. He knew it. The MBA helped him to understand more aspects of business better, but it still brought him back to where he wanted to be. He took a job at a large hedge fund, Schultz. They did $800 million a year. He quickly found a niche that he told us about in that first episode, and he became probably the senior investment person in about a year and a half. And but then we had in 2008 and 2009, all kinds of stuff happened in the finance industry, and that's what we're going to get into now, about how he overcame that to then move into eventually his dream of being the CEO of Growth Fountain. So Ken, welcome to part 2 of the No BS Marketing Show.
Thank you, Dave. It's good to be back.
Excellent summary, and I really like the aspect about how you talked about living the passion, not being a BSer, and how you didn't get the coaching you'd wanted, so you now strive to give that to people on your team. But you talked about adversity very early, about how in high school and college things came easy to you, and then that first job you had some adversity, so you worked through that, got the MBA, and then we have another big hit of adversity for not just you, but your entire industry. So talk through how that happened, when you knew it was coming, how you adjusted to it, and how you responded.
It's funny because I'm sitting here in New York, and just so happens most of my friends are in the finance world in New York, and I don't know many people that have the same job that they had before the financial crisis. And so it really hit the financial industry hard in New York. And I knew in business school in 2007 that we were in somewhat of a bubble, and people chasing private equity jobs usually indicates that you're somewhere near a top. And so that's why I chose the field of distressed. I thought that we were going to hit a recession. I thought that there would be a lot of opportunity. I didn't realize how bad the recession was going to be, and that it would put most of the distressed firms out of business as well. And so when Schultz went under, you could find anomalies in the publicly traded markets that didn't make sense. For example, the average price of bank debt, which is more secured in a company's capital structure. In other words, that even in bankruptcy, even in liquidation, the worst case scenario, you have a first claim on all the assets of that company. So you're going to get paid before anybody else. The bank debt prices were about 10 cents on average beneath the bond prices, right? Different bond indices. And that there was literally free money out there. And perceiving the investment opportunity of a lifetime, it just made me more and more excited. Of course, being in the distressed industry, 8-year-olds locked in a closet wouldn't come up with the same sort of, disturbing fantasies that I came up with as, I kind of saw the end of capitalism was coming and just, read these books like society is 8 missed meals away from anarchy, and just how fragile the whole system was. And so I was certainly scared, probably much more so than somebody that didn't pay as close attention to the markets was. But I guess what good would money be if we hit anarchy? So you might as well invest it in these opportunities that I thought were really good. And so I partnered up with two other individuals that had really good experience in the same industry, Peter Lupoff and Charlie Trisser-Pissel, and together we launched a hedge fund called Tiburon Capital Management, and we were going to run the same types of strategies: distressed, special situations, event-driven. And we had no money, but we were incredibly ignorant and naive, and just thought, with our track records and with the investors that we've spoken with in the past, we sort of soft circled that we thought it would be easy to raise money. Well, none of that turned out to be easy, and it always goes. Everything takes a lot longer than you think. And somehow, some way, we were able to cobble together a few investors with a few $1 million, so that at least enabled us to launch our vehicles and get started and put together, portfolios and figure out, how we needed to build a front office system and a back office system and settle trades and put together a marketing deck and go out and talk to people, and things that you just sort of take for granted when you're part of a bigger institution. But we got that rolling and started to have some good performance. And we didn't pay ourselves anything for first year and a half. Just kind of figuring that, we'll figure that part out as we start to succeed. And about a year in, I'm scratching my head and saying, if you told me in 6 months that we're going to have revenue, then I can sort of plan accordingly and make it work. But right now, it's impossible to see any prospect on the horizon at all of when this is really going to be a legitimate business. And so the three of us sat down and, started to think, all right, well, maybe it's time to pursue some strategic alternatives, whatever that means. If it's, a bigger firm hiring us or, potentially somebody buying us. And right when we started to pursue those alternatives, we started to really hit our stride and just had really good performance. And in the time period when that performance, when those strategic alternative parties started to come in and look at it, it was, 6 months of really good performance and money started coming in. And so we actually, what I would call, we were a legitimate firm at that point, is a firm that was able to pay us market salaries and sort of enable us to hire whom we needed to hire and do things like you would do at a normal firm. That's the same time it just coincidentally hit that people started to bid for us. And we all of a sudden weren't desperate to take their money, right? And so that just helped us negotiate a good deal. And it's kind of rare in the hedge fund business to be acquired. It doesn't happen all that often. And we just sort of lucked into the situation because of the pathway that I just sort of told the story of. We were forced to do that because we didn't have any money, and the timing worked out well. Interesting.
You mentioned a couple of other things that I want to tie back to as well, because your initial description of the company, you talked about how, I think you said the Rahm Emanuel quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Talk about that a little bit, because I think one of the common themes throughout this is that you've had the courage and the leadership to take adversity. Like one of the time you said you were going the distressed model because you saw something that others didn't, because most people were like going, let's get the heck away from this. And you were going to the distressed model. Then you threw out the Rahm Emanuel quote. It takes some strong leadership and courage to think that way, because you're kind of zigging when everybody else seems to be zagging.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that I have very few role models left, unfortunately, in the asset management world, because I don't think that the system is set up to succeed for investors over the long haul. But two of my role models that still exist today are Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway. And of course, they preach on high to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And it's really hard to set your disposition to go against the grain. Humans tend to be very social creatures. We want to follow the crowd. So I sort of had some training in that, and I'm okay at it. Certainly not as good as Berkshire Hathaway is, but I just sort of coincided with, when we sold Tiburon, the investment industry has always been fun for me. I always enjoyed it, but from a big picture perspective, it was hard for me to really see how I was making it a difference in this world. Other than making a few people rich or a few people some money, how was I really leaving the world a better place than I found it? And that just over time, that little voice in the back of my head that kept sort of saying, what's this all about? And then I just happened to read the Jobs Act, and I happened to see, sort of the vision in my head of starting Growth Fountain was, I could make a difference. The skill set that I've learned, I can use that to help other people that are trying to start a company in America, right? I could build a company to help level the playing field for entrepreneurs all across America. And I thought very quickly that, Growth Fountain, there were three reasons why I thought it would be great to start Growth Fountain. The first is that I thought I had the skill set to actually help people. The second was that this was a greenfield environment, massive changes to regulation that were going to enable such a terrific change in America. Right? And Goldman Sachs recently wrote a research report that called this a $1 trillion opportunity. Right? So I knew that the industry was going to be big, and so it could be very profitable for us. And the third was our mission of leveling the playing field for small business and entrepreneurs and helping provide the tools they need to succeed and simplifying the process. It's a very warm, fuzzy, feel-good, altruistic mission. And I thought that would enable us to attract the best team members and the best partners and get a really good investor group behind us to pursue this opportunity. And so far, this has turned out to be true for us.
In episode 1, you talked about the Jobs Act and how in April 5th of 2012 it was signed by Obama, but then it took a long time to go live. But you gave the two main reasons that the Jobs Act was going to change things, and it was that everyone can invest in small business, and it allowed you to advertise to the public, and that brought the internet into it. And you gave that example about the milk company that put a Post-it note on the side of the truck, and they actually got in trouble for that because that was violating the law. And this new Jobs Act changed that because now everyone can invest in small business and you're allowed to advertise it. So that leads you to coming up with those three reasons of why Growth Fountain can be such a strong business. So let's go right into that. Talk to me about Growth Fountain and some of the successes, some of the bumps in the road, but really just your big idea around of how it's made an impact. And I look at your website and I see your team. You got an impressive team there. Just talk about the whole thing about Growth Fountain and how you had this vision around that Jobs Act. And you crack me up because you're humble. You're like, I just happened to read the Jobs Act. Well, no, I mean, that's part of your skill. Look, most people don't take the time to read that, and then they don't have the ability to see the trend that's going to drive. So give it to me all your story about the big idea behind Growth Fountain and successes and failures along the way.
I think, since this is the no BS marketing show, the messaging is so important. And when we first built the website, and solicit customer feedback along the way, what works for people and what doesn't, we had our tagline on the website said, "Your success is our success." And it turned out that nobody understood what in the world that meant. So we've refined that one sentence tagline now to be own a piece of your favorite company. And I think that really speaks to what this opportunity enables. It's far above and beyond the potential to just if for just the prospect of financial return. You now have the ability to be part of something that you believe in, right? And whether it's a local business that you frequent all the time, or whether it's an entrepreneur that has the next big idea that you think has the potential to be the next Google or Facebook, you can now participate in that and support people via investment, in addition to helping give them your input on how they can best succeed, right? Spreading the word and drawing other customers to that business. It's a new ecosystem, and that's what Growth Fountain can be a part of. We can help, and we can be the marketplace, the platform to help connect businesses and entrepreneurs across America with investors and supporters that can actually provide the capital and spread the word and help that business succeed. And this is new, right? Our challenge has been one of education. There was a poll recently taken where 500 small business CEOs were called and said, hey, have you ever heard of equity crowdfunding? And only 3 of them have. And so when you think about traditional crowdfunding, you think about Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And on these platforms, or GoFundMe, on these platforms, contributors are making a donation or they're pre-purchasing the product, but that's it. What you can do now with equity crowdfunding is you actually receive securities for your investment. So you have the prospect for a financial return. You get ownership in exchange for this. And that's a game changer, right? And so now companies until now, right? Local businesses, entrepreneurs across America, they've really had 4 avenues for capital formation until now, right? They could go to their bank and try to get a loan. Banks tend to like unencumbered assets or guarantees. And so those tend to be often very hard to get, at least in a material amount that can enable you to pursue your opportunity and that doesn't put you on the hook for the risk that the business is taking. The second is you borrow money on a credit card, but those rates tend to be usurious. You would go to your friends and family for money, but that can, of course, cause conflict. And the fourth was you could go to a venture capital fund. The venture capital funds fund about 0.2% of the opportunities that they see. And if you look at the data, 75% of VC money goes to 3 states, California, New York, Massachusetts. And so that leaves 47 states to fight over 25% of the venture capital dollars. And, as a non-starter out of the gate, venture capitalists are not even interested in local businesses in bricks and mortar locations. And so, with the advent of equity crowdfunding and the Jobs Act, this is truly the democratization of capital. And we're actually doing a little stint now to sort of put our money where our mouth is, called the Heartland Tour, where we're visiting 10 mid-sized cities across America and saying, VC money isn't coming here, but we are. And we're going to host an event, co-host an event with a local institution, usually a credit union, and have the founders of a company raising money do a live demo. And so everybody in the room that's watching can invest in real time over their devices. And everybody in the world can watch because we're also live streaming this over our website, and they can invest in real time. And so it's just, these little things that we can do to help amplify exposure for anywhere from local businesses to the next Google or Facebook all across America.
Why the credit unions? Why is that the tie into this Heartland Tour?
So we've partnered with credit unions, and that sounds like a strange thing to say. So let me clarify what I mean. Credit unions are not-for-profit entities. They are cooperatives. So in essence, they are the original crowdfunded entities. They're member-owned. And their mission is a focus on community development and growth. Their mantra is people helping people. And that just sounds like it has an awful lot of similarities with what crowdfunding attempts to accomplish. And so when we started Growth Fountain, I approached Callahan and Associates, which is sort of an innovative thought leader to the credit union space. They're a consultant. And I said, here's what we're doing, and here's why I think it makes sense for credit unions to be involved. And they said, this makes total sense, and it's really cool, but we have no idea. So we're going to set you up with some meetings with some credit unions and see what the feedback is. And the feedback came back really positive. And so Callahan helped us establish the model, and here it is we will build each credit union partner their own website. And they can then go to their members and say, hey, members, are you interested in supporting and investing in your local businesses? We have a platform for you. Or, hey, local businesses or budding entrepreneurs, do you want to raise money, we can help connect you to your community and through our partner in Growth Fountain, everybody in the world. And so what we do is we build these websites that have the look and feel of, digital credit union, dcu.growthfountain.com. It has their colors, their logos, and any business that lists through them will appear first and foremost on their platform. And then it'll lead into all of the other offerings across all of our other platforms. And this helps, DCU has 620,000 members. That's a lot of eyeballs that can look at all of the campaigns that we have across our platforms. And we now have partners with credit unions reaching about 1.1 million members. And so that's another differentiator of ours, that we can offer any issuer that lists through our platform. We can get them a lot of exposure and really increase the probability of their funding success. And we have also, our other competitive advantage, the other way that we differ from other platforms out there, is we have a whole host of free tools on our platform to help those businesses. If you think about that quintessential local business, your favorite bar, they're likely to know an awful lot about running a bar, but they may be intimidated when it comes to legal documents or terms of financial valuation. And so our system helps them establish all of that for free. And so I would encourage anybody that if you're wondering what your valuation might be, log on to our website, and it's all free. We have 4 calculators on there to help you assess what your valuation might be or how much money you might need to raise to accomplish your goals. And we also have templates on there to help create your official offering documents, subscription agreements, and we'll do all the heavy lifting all along the way. We'll collect all the electronic signatures, we'll handle all the money flows, we'll do all the filings, so that you as a business can just focus on telling the very best story you can to potential investors and help facilitate that emotional connection via imagery, video, words, in the best way that you can.
Are you using Audible yet? If not, you can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/nobs. Try a book like Amaze Every Customer Every Time, 52 Tools for Delivering the Most Amazing Customer Service on the Planet by a past No BS marketing guest, Shep Hyken. You can download it for free today. Go to audibletrial.com/nobs for your free audiobook. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So, Ken, you've really provided us a lot of great background and your model and your ability to see trends. And now you've got Growth Fountain, where you're really, I love the idea behind it of how you're able to connect entrepreneurs with supporters, and how it's different than Kickstarter, because the great stat there when you said only 3 out of 500 C-suite people knew of equity crowdfunding, and if they did, they might have known of Kickstarter. This whole model is different. You've partnered with credit unions. I think it's just really impressive, and it's gone pretty well at this point. So I want to segue into something fun, because I'm a big Billions fan. So anytime I talk to somebody who I think knows that space better than me, I have to ask them, A, do they watch Billions? And B, what do they think of it? And C, is there much truth to any of this? I realize it's exaggerated for TV, but what are your thoughts in general? Do you watch Billions? Do you like it? And what do you think about it?
I do watch Billions, and I do like it. And it is actually all grounded on truth. It's based on factual historical occurrences. Of course, because it's a Showtime 1 hour weekly series, they sort of accelerate things and they twist what the actual historical occurrences were. But I can say obviously the main character seems to be based on Stephen Cohen from SAC and insider trading. One of the recent episodes was about treasury rigging, and that is actually based on a true occurrence that happened at Salomon Brothers back when John Goodfriend was the CEO. That led to the collapse of the almost collapse of Salomon Brothers, and Warren Buffett, probably the only man in the world that could have saved Salomon Brothers, and did. And the real situation that occurred with Salomon Brothers, it was not the way that it's portrayed in Billions. where the guy gets off the phone when he hears that the district attorney from the Southern Court in Manhattan is kind of done with his investigation and moving on, and the guy says thanks, and then he picks up the phone and says, okay, you can continue rigging these treasuries. It didn't really work like that, but at Salomon Brothers, John Goodfriend was aware that an employee was rigging these auctions and didn't do anything to stop it. And so the government got involved, and essentially they wanted to bring down Salomon Brothers and Warren Buffett against all advice, from, his partner said, he came in and he staked his entire reputation on saving Salomon Brothers. And he testified before Congress, and it was really one of the best things I've ever seen, where he says, the 8,000 employees at Salomon Brothers today bear a stain, and that stain should be borne only by the few guilty parties. We welcome the government's intervention. You have tools at your disposal that we don't have. You have the power of immunity, the power to call witnesses and so forth and so on, the things that our internal investigation doesn't have. So we welcome you to come and do that. Let's find the people that were guilty of this and make them pay, but not ruin 8,000 people's lives. And he said, no, I tell everybody at Salomon Brothers, lose money for me and I will be understanding, but lose one shred of reputation and I will be ruthless. And everyone should act as his or her own compliance officer, right? Think about every contemplated action as if it were to appear on the cover of your hometown newspaper to be read by peers and family. And you do that in coordination with acting as your own compliance officer, and you'll make the right decisions.
Well, is there anyone that you know of that plays the Maggie Siff role? And if so, I'm going to be sexist here. Is she as hot as her?
No, unfortunately, I don't know of anyone that really plays that role, nor would, but that's the beauty of Showtime, I guess.
It seems like that role, though, like I tell my team, I'm like, I'm a head case. If I had someone at Mass Solutions that I could go to, and our company would probably triple in size because I probably hold us back a lot with my head trash. So it seems like something like that actually you would be value from that, like at a big firm like that, or like the firms you worked at. Was there ever any thought of that, or do you think there actually is someone playing that role, but maybe just not full-time staff, but they're sending people to someone for, I guess you'd call it both coaching and therapy?
I think that there probably is, and there probably isn't. That's a valuable role because as I was sort of saying, what Buffett teaches is be greedy when others are fearful when others are greedy. There's so many behavioral. It's called now. It's an actual legitimate field, behavioral economics. But what it really is deficiencies in psychology that lead to non-rational decisions, and there are proven about 20 of these psychological. Well, they're not really imbalances, but they're deficiencies where humans make predictable decisions that are they're inaccurate. They do not go with this concept of what we learn in a marketplace economy that actors make rational decisions. They are irrational decisions, and they're predictable, and there are about 20 of them. So if you had a coach like that would just really help you understand what your own biases are and what the biases of the marketplace are, it can help you, prevent making poor decisions, right? Because sometimes when humans are known to sell at the bottom and buy at the top, right? And so if you can understand what these, you can recognize them in yourself and in other people, you could make better decisions.
And of course, I'm referencing Wendy Rhodes of Billions. In case you're not a Billions fan yet, you should check it out. And she serves that role for all of the big time traders, and just a really great show. Ken, pick a tool that'll help our audience tell their story, craft their message, or communicate to internal and external target audiences. It could be a tool like Google Trends to generate content ideas. It could be your favorite book, blog, or productivity resource. You've talked a lot about Warren Buffett and some quotes and so forth, but what's a tool you think might help our listeners?
Great. Well, I'm an avid reader, and so I think that there's a lot of education to be learned just by reading some biographies of people that you respect who have accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. And in the field of entrepreneurship, just some of the books that I've really enjoyed are, like the story of Jeff Bezos, the Everything Store, the story of Google in the Plex, the story of Ray Kroc, founder, the story of Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, Shoe Dog, Steve Jobs, etc. But given that this is the No BS marketing podcast, I also wanted to introduce another book that I've found particularly helpful, particularly for startups. And that's the concept of traditional marketing channels are not really quite as effective for today's startups as they were for traditional pipeline companies. When you're a platform or when you're a startup, there's a concept called growth hacking. And growth hacking is really essentially the concept of when something goes viral, it's usually not by mistake. It's been engineered to do so. And so if you pump your traditional marketing dollars back into your product and enabling and encouraging your users to share a link to your site, then that's called growth hacking. And one little anecdote about that is when Hotmail was created, it was funded by a venture capital firm, and the CEO and CFO of the two founders of Hotmail were meeting with the venture capitalist Tim Draper, and Tim Draper, they were trying to figure out how to get people to use Hotmail. And Tim Draper said, "Well, would it be, could you put like a little subscript on each email that went out?" And immediately he received pushback. The founder said, "No, terrible idea." And he goes, "No, just is it possible?" And they said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, here's what you do. At the bottom of every email, you write, 'P.S. I love you. Get your free Hotmail account here,' and put a link back to Hotmail." And within 6 months or something, they had, gone parabolic. It had just a lot more users and ended up being acquired, I think at that time by Microsoft for like $400 million. And so the book is called Growth Hackers, and there's nothing in there that's rocket science, but it just helps put a frame of mind on, how you can think of encouraging users to spread the word on what it is you're doing.
Thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Are you signed up for the No BS Marketing Weekly Update? You'll receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. It's light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions